Hello folks, Jonathan Milam here with a comparison of two cornets, excuse me. One of them is an old favorite of mine. When I started my comeback, probably about 16 years or so, I laid off in my late 20s, 30s, and early 40s. This was the first horn that I got on YouTube, 95 bucks. It's an Olds Special, very underrated cornet. I think it is a tremendous cornet. And to compare with that, I have got one of the recognized, better at least vintage, if not all-time cornets on the market, and that is the Olds Recording. Of course, you've got your offset valves. Your second is a little further from the palm of your hand than your first and third. Absolutely magnificent cornet. One thing I've wanted to clear up, years ago, I got a Olds Recording Cornet. It was a few years older than this one. It used a large Olds mouthpiece. Some Marcinowitz Flugel mouthpieces will work in it. I just could not get a tone I liked on that. Very diffused, very airy, breathy, which I don't have a problem with. I just couldn't dial in with that strange mouthpiece in a cornet. So one of the first YouTube vids I did, I'd already had probably 150 horns before I started making these. Just have always enjoyed buying and selling. But I had a recording with the strange mouthpiece and this Olds Special. And I felt like the Olds Special really compared very favorable to that recording that I had. Now I've got a newer recording, although it's still 59, I believe it is, and the Special is from 65. They both use a regular cornet mouthpiece. It's a much better comparison, and I think this is a tremendous cornet, the recording, but my Olds Special is hanging with it. Now, the reason I think this is an underrated cornet, very much like the Ambassador, which is about as cheap an instrument as you can get, and it seems like there are always thousands of them around. You can use them for a hammer, you can use them to prop up a car, little humor, but they're very, very solid. And this is almost identical in wrap to the Ambassador. What does the Ambassador do? The Ambassador comes a little further over here and then dials back, but they both enter the third valve. The recording is a completely different wrap, and you'll notice it is significantly shorter, probably by a couple of inches. Just a tighter wrap, a little more material around this area. Solider feel. In fact, it feels heavier because it's all very close together in your hand. But what I think makes the Special a special instrument is actually the way they did the bell. This is nickel silver. All of the bell is nickel silver until you get right to the bell flare, and then they put a bronze tip on. Not quite the darkest copper, but a bronze tip. I just think you get an excellent sound with the nickel silver and the bronze tip. Okay, I'm going to use a few different mouthpieces. I'm going to start off with a Curry BBC, which is his British brass band. So it's a very, very deep, I think the throat on this is a 18 or 19 drill, very, very deep V. Hey, it's a cornet. So we're going to start playing Just a Closer Walk with You. Too bad we don't have the clarinet and the trombone behind me, and you know, the Dixieland 4 as they used to call it. But Just a Closer Walk with You, with thee, and we'll give you an idea how the Special sounds, then we'll play it right away on the recording. Okay, that was not Just a Closer Walk with Thee. Let me turn this down just a little bit, and we're ready to go. right, again, that is the Olds Special and the Olds Recording. Very similar sound. I do believe in a big hall you'd notice a difference in overtones. Great cornet. Great cornet. As an aside, I've got some King instruments. I've got quite a few cons at the moment. And this cornet, made in '65, still has an old world craftsman feel. At least like they did. Olds kept their quality up for a long time. I've heard guys say that well into the '70s they put together a good horn. And this horn from '65, believe me, it is so much nicer than some other vintage horns from other companies that I played in the '60s and even in the '50s. I think Olds just really did a nice job. Okay, I'm going to go. That was, as I mentioned, a very deep mouthpiece. Oh, what do we do here? I'm going to go with a box 7. It's a relatively shallow, at least compared to the Curry British brass band piece that I used. A straight 7, not a C. Kind of a V mouthpiece, gives a little bit of a breathy tone. We'll use it on both of them. And we'll just play a little bit of that song so we can just give you an idea of the sound real quick. I really like that 7. I'm going to do a recording comparing the recording cornet and the recording trumpet in just a minute. You'll get to hear that again. Great instruments. Okay, now we'll do both of them with the 7C, most popular mouthpiece in the world, at least it was when I was starting out. I think the 3C may have surpassed it. Okay, I'm going to pick up the speed just a little bit. What do you do with the cornet but when the Saints go marching in? A little up or a little higher in the register. And with the recording, Great sounding horns, really, both solid, sound more similar. Now this recording, I believe, has about the same material for the bell. They called it realloy, but I believe it's a copper and brass mix. Most of us would call it bronze, I believe. This is unfinished, so it looks a little different, but I believe they would be pretty similar if they had the same lacquer on them for the same length of time. There's a chance that the Special has a little bit more of that bronze in it, but I think they're comparable at the tip. But the Special has the nickel silver all through here, and I think that's what helps it out. Okay, this is about as shallow as you'd want to go with the cornet. It is a Reeves piece. I've opened up the throat just a little bit, but definitely not going to mistake this for a British brass band mouthpiece. And then that same shallower mouthpiece with the Olds Special. Okay, that's about it for the cornets today. Again, we've had the Olds Special here and the Recording Cornet. Two magnificent horns. This one, when I got it, was lacquer. Ugly as sin. Lacquer, old lacquer, when it's got a lot of hand mixture in and you've just got dirt that accumulates along it. It was spotty, black, ugly. My wife and girls were on a brownie trip that weekend, and my son and I stripped this thing of the lacquer. We sprayed it with oven cleaner and then used hot water on it. Nothing was taking this lacquer off. So we finally resorted. Steel wool. Steel wool. And you know, the tight wrap of cornets, working, trying to get the lacquer off all this areas. Friday night, I don't even know if we slept. I don't know if we even stopped for sandwiches. My son was about 7 years old. It was one of our first father-son projects. My knuckles were bleeding, and we had the best time in the world. But he tells me I can never sell this. So when I die, I said, "You going to put it in the casket with me?" Which, looking at my hair, won't be too long. And he said, "I might keep it and they can put it in the casket with me." But it's a father and son Olds Special here. Appreciate you checking in with the videos. Don't forget, the thumbs up button is the one to hit. If you want to hit a thumbs down, find somebody else's video and do it. But we enjoy the talk of cornets and just chatting about material. Hope you've enjoyed this with the different mouthpieces. Let me know which cornet you like best. And as always, take care, stay safe, enjoy life, and if things get rough, buy a cornet. Have a great time, folks.